Algebra 1, I wanted to go over the last page from 7.2 and I know that in one of the classes I did not get a chance to go over. So I'm looking at, if you guys go to 7.2 CW and then go to not the first page, not the second page, but the third page. This is the page that I'm working on. Okay, so we're looking at this quadratic function. This function here, y equals x squared minus 4. And we're going to graph it and see what happens. Now in the previous graphs, we had the graphs, at least in this case, were a U-shape that started right here in the middle. From the middle, it went up to the right, and from the middle, it went up to the left. And then if we look at the next graph we made, this one here, the next graph, we had a negative in front of the x squared, and this time it caused it to flip and go point downwards instead of upwards. So the difference on this one now is that it's minus 4. Okay, so now let's go ahead and do what we did before and plug in the values. So here, I'm going to plug in negative 2, and it's negative 2 squared minus 4. Well, negative 2 squared is 4, minus 4 is 0. Plug in negative 1 squared minus 4. 1 squared is 1, minus 4, negative 3. Then 0 squared minus 4. 0 squared is 0, minus 4 is minus 4. And as you guys may have noticed the last time, that when you start going back the other way, when you start with negative numbers and go back the other way, that the numbers will be the same, negative 3, 0, and 5 going the other direction. So now 1 squared minus 4, 1 squared is 1, minus 4 again is negative 3, and then 2 squared minus 4, 2 squared is 4, minus 4 is 0, just like up here when we plugged in negative 2, and 3 squared minus 4, well that's 9, minus 4 is 5, just like up here when we plugged in negative 3, because it's symmetrical. This side is going to be the same as this side. Okay, so let's go ahead and graph this now. First point will be negative 3 and 5. Comes from this point. Next one will be negative 2 and 0. So it's right on the line. That came from this, negative 2 and 0. And then the next point will be negative 1, negative 3. Again, that comes from these points. And the next one will be 0 and negative 4. And then what we'll notice, as we noticed in the last graphs, is that once you graph one side of the graph, the other side is exactly the same, just reflected or flipped to the other side. So then when I graph this one, if I know the left side, I know that the right is the same thing. This one's to the left one, so this is the right one. This one here is the left 2, so that means this one's right 2. This one's to the left 3, so this one's to the right 3. So now, connect our dots and make a U. Okay, now let's label our graph. Okay, so now, again, this is y equals x squared minus 4. What did you notice about what happened to the graph? Let's compare it to the first one. So x squared, let's go back to x squared. X squared was right here. It started at 0, went up to the right, started at 0, went up to the right. This one starts at negative 4 and goes up to the right. And starts at negative 4 and goes up to the left. So it's the same graph, but it looks like it moved down. It moved down minus 4. Well, guess what? It is minus 4, so that's why it moved down. The whole graph moved down minus 4. Okay, so now let's get the vertex. Okay, the vertex, again, is this point right in the middle of the graph. The point right in the middle. And that point is going to be at x equals 0 and y equals negative 4. Remember, it's a point. Now let's draw the line of symmetry. The line of symmetry goes down the middle. It's the dashed line that we draw down the middle. Oops. And remember, we want to write an equation for a line of symmetry. So this will be x equals whatever the number of the x that it crosses at, which is here is 0. That's our x line of symmetry. X equals 0. Okay, now the question is, does it have any x-intercepts? Well, it has x-intercepts here and here. Then the x-intercepts are going to be, well, the first one is going to be -2 and 0. This is where it crosses the x-axis. And then 2 and 0 on the other side. Okay. Now how about does it cross the y-axis? Well, yes, it does cross the y-axis right down here. And it crosses the y-axis at -4. So we'll say as a point, that's 0 and -4. Okay, and how about the maximum and the minimum? Okay, well, is there a maximum is the question. Well, remember, max is the highest point, minimum is the lowest point. Is there a high point? No, there's only a low point down here, and that's a minimum value. Okay, so our minimum value, well, it's right there at that same point, -4. So the min is equal to -4. Okay, so now how about the domain and range? Well, again, remember, domain is our x values, and then the range will be our y values. Okay, so let's start with domain. So does this graph go forever and ever to the left? Yes, it does. As this arrow goes up, it's still moving left, and it goes on forever and ever to the left. And this, does it go forever and ever to the right? As this arrow goes up, it goes forever and ever and ever and ever up to the right. So if it goes forever and ever, both ways, well then the domain is all real numbers. Okay, now for the range, we're going from the bottom to the top. And we say, does it go down forever and ever? No, it stops here, and it stops at -4. Does it go up forever and ever? No. Well, yes, it does. It does go up forever and ever. And remember, range is y. Oops, sorry. Range is y. So if it stops, that means it stops at a certain point, and y can be greater than or equal to, because it's opening up, the graph is going up. And if it can be greater than or equal to -4, that point where it stops. Okay, now is this a function? Well, if we take our line test, let's see if I can draw a line, make a line. Here's a line, and I move that line across. As I move that line across, does it touch in more than one place? No, it's not touching. It only touches the graph in one place as I go across. Okay, so that means that this is a function. Okay, so now the question is, based on our observation, what do you think the graph of y equals x squared is going to look like? Well, when it was -4, the graph went down. So this time, if it's going to be +4, that probably means it's going to go up. So it will look something like this. So our graph will probably be up here, above the x-axis. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So again, it will go up 4. And that's it.